Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Winning Wednesday. And I trust that you found some way to win today. I did. And, it's an effort. You have to be intentional if you want to win. So, welcome to the call. And hopefully, we will not get interrupted. The weather has been a little in and out this afternoon. But if we do, I always come back and I call it part two. So you don't get shorted of any of the information that I have for you. So tonight, we're not going to go back and review last week. That video is up if you want to go back and take a look at it and get some refreshers on what we talked about. But just remember, no more excuses was part of what we talked about last week and how to get yourself together. All right, so we find ourselves in the middle of this pandemic. We are praying that it gets better, but meantime, we have time to think about a lot of things right now. We have what we call, I won't call it free time, because time is not free. Time costs you something, and using it incorrectly can cost you a lot, or not using it at all can cost you a lot. So I'm going to talk about, I've been here before. And if you went through the recession in 2008, 2009, and around up until really 2010 or so, you know what happened back then. But a lot of you that were not actually in the real estate business, you may have been sitting on the sideline, you may have owned a home, but you weren't fully aware of what caused the last crisis that we had. So I want to share with you tonight from my viewpoint of having been in real estate more than 3 decades. Yes, more than 3 decades in real estate after working 2 decades in the insurance industry. So I think that I know a little bit about, definitely, insurance has changed so much. All I know is you really need it, and it costs a whole lot more than it used to cost. But I know a lot about real estate, and I want to share with you a little bit of history tonight, because oftentimes history repeats itself. This recession is different than the last recession, but some of the outcomes, some of the events, some of the same occurrences, and some of the same problems are going to present themselves maybe in a little different way. It may have a different effect, but nonetheless, it will be a part of us going through the storm that we're in right now. So, to tell you a little bit about why I am so passionate about real estate and how blessed I am to work in the field that I work in, I'm from Williamsburg County, King Street in particular, in a little community called Sandridge, and appropriately called Sandridge because when I grew up there, all we had were dirt roads in that community. From one end of the road to the other. So when cars went by, it was real dusty. And if you had to walk, and most of us had to walk, you would realize that you were truly in Sand Ridge because, when you had the little patent leather shoes, you'd put a little Royal Crown or a little Vaseline or something on them to shine them up. And the minute you set foot in the sand on Sand Ridge, well, your job was kind of half undone, but you still had a little bit of shine. You could brush them off just before you got to church. And so growing up there in Sand Ridge, in the Sand Ridge community, my mother and a sister shared a home, and you may have heard my story before, but I'm sharing it again so that you can relate to what I'm about to tell you about recession-proof in your life. We lived in a 1-bedroom home, and we shared alike. And then most people, when they grew up, or when their parents decided that, I've had enough of working the farms, I want to move somewhere. A lot of people from our area migrated to Florida or to New York. Rochester and Brooklyn were the two favorite cities in the North, and Hollywood, Florida, and Miami, Florida were the cities of the South. And so you got on the train or you got on the bus, you packed your lunch, and you left the place that you grew up in, Kingstree, South Carolina. Well, for me, growing up in Kingstree, I learned the meaning of a village and how a village would always look out for each other. It was either send me a stick of butter, loan me 2 eggs. I want to use your pump to pump some water, because not everybody had running water. We didn't. Not everybody had TV. Not everybody had washing machines. A lot of things we did without. Not everybody had electric lights. So we learned a lot. And so when you enter a recession and things change, you have to learn how to adapt, especially if you came from humble means. And with my husband and I, we got married at 17 and 18, and I kind of shared that with you last week. So we couldn't buy a home right away. We had to rent. And thank God you could rent being under 21 years old, because that's what we did until we were able to buy. And so when you make decisions in life, you have consequences. But when you have a thing like a recession, a pandemic that is actually forced on you, and you don't have a choice, you really have to dig deep, and you really have to want to succeed. You really have to want to know and be able to have the testimony of how I got over. And so in order to get over, you have to get up, you have to dust yourself off in the middle of the pandemic and say, there's got to be more to life than this. Especially, you're blessed if you don't have the virus. And so it's time to make some decisions. And for me, I would have to say that a big career decision was one of the best decisions that I made as an adult. When I decided that I had had enough of the insurance industry because I had hit what they call the glass ceiling. And as I look back at that, that really wasn't that high at all. Okay. But it was a learning experience. And so what I say is, when you find yourself in a mess, listen for the message, because there will surely be a message out of the mess. What you go through is setting you up for what you're going to. And the end of one thing is the beginning of another. And so when it comes to the recession, let's talk about, let me tell you what my 3 decades of experience has afforded me to learn. That nothing stays the same. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Things will always change. Things are always changing. Things will always change. And if you refuse to pivot, to reposition yourself, then you're going to be lost, because the world is forever changing. And I think there was a soap opera, as the world turns, and this world really turns. So let's look back to the recession of 2009. What caused it? The biggest cause, and I'm going to go through a series of things in this recession or this pandemic versus what it was in 2009. The economic scars, it was economic collapse, and the main the main reason for the collapse was subprime lending. So if there are any young people on this line, you might say, what is subprime lending? Well, it's below prime, okay? And I'm going to go into that. What happened in the last recession was we had higher unemployment than we normally had, but not nearly as much unemployment as what we have right now. We had lower wages and lower income. We had a lot of lost opportunities in 2008 to 2010 or 11. The crisis led to massive foreclosures. It exceeded the normal number of foreclosures by 500,000. So over 500,000 people lost their properties during the last recession. Okay. And so the normal, I'll tell you what the normal was, but then just think about this number. 500,000 people losing their homes because of a recession. That recession wiped out a lot of savings, a lot of retirement funds, a lot of 401ks went to 101, and from 101 as part of recovering to probably a zero. People generally, literally had to start over. And I know what that feels like, because when this recession hit, my business was on fire. It was at the highest point ever. Okay. But the recession was not personal. It was worldwide. It was felt by everyone, by the rich, the middle class, the white collar, the blue collar. People of all ages suffered during the recession. More importantly, home prices took a nosedive. They went down, which is really not what you would expect. But home prices took a steep decline. The stock market plummeted. They lost trillions of dollars in the stock market. Big banks were hurt, but guess what? They got bailed out, big time, bailed out. Trillions of dollars going to the bank. And did we get to see any relief from that? No, we did not. Lenders tightened up their requirements. And I want to tell you why. There was something called subprime, and I'm going to tell you how we got ourselves into the mess. And there was a stimulus plan to help you to recover. But before you can recover, you have to realize what got us into the mess. Subprime lending caused hedge funds, banks, and insurance companies to do things that they normally would not do. Demands for mortgages led to an asset bubble, and the housing market was just crumbling. So subprime lending was like this. People got loans based on stated income. They said they made X amount of dollars. The lenders took that. People got loans that didn't have really good credit. And so the subprime market was happy to figure out a happy medium, what they called a win-win. Because if you were getting a subprime loan, they charged you an extremely high interest rate. They didn't look as closely at your credit score like they do today to determine whether you would get a loan or not get a loan. And so a lot of people got adjustable rate mortgages. And you don't hear too much about adjustable rate mortgages because you don't have to have one in today's market because the interest rate is at an all-time low, below 3%. Ever since they were recording, this is the lowest it has been. Okay. So when people got in to these subprime loans at little or no risk of their own, the banks took on the risk. So when 500,000 people started losing their homes, the banks were loaded down with properties that they had to get rid of. And a lot of people walked away. No skin in the game. They walked away. So subprime lending served its purpose, but it was short-lived because a lot of people got adjustable loans. And when those rates went up, and they did go up, people were not able, they couldn't afford to pay their mortgage. So people were displaced. They were really displaced. So the foreclosure delinquency rate is usually around about 5%. But in the recession of 2008, 2009, it soared to 22%. Okay? So you got to know your history, you got to know your facts, and you got to know how to prepare for higher ground. So the subprime lending got us into the mess. Too much borrowing, flawed qualifications based on the assumption that real estate was going to always go up and never go down in value. And that would have been the case except for the last recession. You were not afforded very much appreciation. Homes went down by a great margin. And so it took years for us to recover and for those, for homes to appreciate. So greed and fraud kicked in, and that's how the subprime lenders got us into the deep recession that we had back in 2008. Rates were offered above the prime rate, so that's subprime, sub credit limits. You didn't have to show actual proof of your income. That is not the way it is today. You could have even had a limited amount of credit history and still have bought a home, but you paid for it in the interest rate and also in the money that it cost you to get that interest rate. A lot of people were paying points and adjustable interest rates and not having proof of your income. Truck drivers, hairdressers, real estate agents, anybody that was in a commission-based business. They allowed us to do some things that you're not going to be able to do as we come out of this particular pandemic that we're in now, this economic crisis. So people would go and get a home, and if the home was $100,000 and the appraisal came back in at 125, they might be able to get an extra $15,000 at the table or show the debts that they wanted paid. And buying the home, they got the keys to the home, but they were able to get rid of some debt as well. But guess what? Most people that got in at very little out of their pocket and got money to pay off debts, to pay off cars, to pay off credit cards, what did they do? As soon as they got in that home, the credit card companies targeted them. The mailboxes were full full of offers to get a new credit card, increase your limit. And so the story went. They did that. Most people did. And so they got right back in more debt. Thank you all for jumping on. And if you have any questions, just post your questions or your comments. So 2 years later, when 2 or 3 years later, when the recession hit, and those adjustable loan adjusted upward of 3 to 5%, some people's mortgage payment actually went from $500 to $800 or $900 a month because they had bought, and they were upside down in their real estate. Because remember, they not only bought a house, but they made a loan and included it in that mortgage payment so that they could live large, okay? Live large. And so when the market crashed, and it did crash, it left a lot of people homeless, trying to rent. And that's why real estate will always be one of the best vehicles that you could use to create wealth. Because all of those 500,000 additional people that lost their home, guess what? They needed a place to rent, whether it was an apartment or whether it was somebody else's home. So if you are on the right side of money, and if you are on the right side of real estate, then you were winning when other people were losing. But you shouldn't feel bad because you didn't cause the mess. They bought into the subprime, no pain, no gain, easy in, easy out, or I can get into a home for $1 down. And yes, we had some of those deals, $1 down. And so these loans were offered at high interest rate. And you would ask, why would they set somebody up for failure? Well, that's the reason that I'm giving you this history. I've been in business more than 3 decades. I've seen interest rates at 19%, and now I'm seeing interest rates at almost 2.5%. And I can tell you, it makes a world of difference. Go look it up and see what a interest rate on $100,000 interest rate on a $100,000 home at 3% or less versus 10%. And it will blow your mind if you bought $100,000 home like in the 80s, around 84, 85, 1984, 1985. The interest rate went up to 18%. So do that for yourself before you go to bed. Go in and calculate that. And I would have to calculate it myself because it's been so long since I've seen interest rates like that. So you would say, why in the world would they allow banks to have programs? Why would they allow lenders to loan you money at that kind of rate? Well, you know what? Subprime lending was not illegal. It wasn't. It was immoral. It was the unthinkable, but a lot of people bought into it. And subprime lending is not, we're not doing it now, but a lot of people are not preparing themselves or did not prepare from the last recession to this recession. So when you find yourself in a crisis, you have to dig your way out. And part of digging your way out is finding out stuff like this. How did we get there in the first place? And so when we look at the recession that we're in now, the pandemic, you didn't hear me mention anything about illness or about a virus in the last recession. Um, but that's where these two recessions differ. People are going to start losing their homes. They're going to start losing their homes to foreclosure. And people are going to start losing their 401k. They've already started. People are going to start to lose their cars to repossession, because some people are worse off even after they have filed bankruptcy, lost a home in the past, was able to get another home, but did not prepare financially. No emergency fund, no 3 to 6 months saving. And I said on Sunday, 3 to 6 months is just a beginning now, because it's been almost 5 months and most people are scared right now, really afraid. They don't know where they're going to get the money to pay their next mortgage. And it's not even 6 months. So while the two recessions are different, never be caught with one stream of income. Never count on a governmental agency to bail you out of anything. Whether they have made rules now that we won't have any more subprime lending, but even at that, we are still making poor choices when it comes to our finances, poor choices when it comes to the money that we spend. So I hope that this little lesson that I've been exposed to, because I've been around, I've been here before. I've been in real estate when it happened before. A lot of new agents, this is a new thing to them. They may have been working a job and have not experienced the things that I experienced firsthand. We rented until we could buy. We bought our first home in 1973 in New Haven, Connecticut, and then bought the next home in 76. And then we moved to South Carolina and bought our first home here in Columbia in 1980. And there has not been a year that I can remember since 1982 that we have not bought one or more properties. Okay? We have now owned a total of 160 personal residents. We've only lived in 4 properties, but we've owned now around 160 properties. I have personally participated either on the buyer side or the seller side of nearly 2,300 transactions. So when I'm called the trusted authority, I know a little something about real estate. I can tell you how to make money. I can tell you how to get on the right side of money. When we moved to Hallandale, Florida, and lived in the Gulfstream apartments, and rent was $12, and I saw that man come knocking on the door about 10 a.m. every Saturday, and there were Saturdays when we didn't have it, I thought then, I was 11 years old, 10 or 11, and I said, you know what? I want to be the man on the other side collecting the money. That's the person I want to be. So what I want to tell you is real estate works. And when you work it, it works real good. So Genevieve, Sandra, Laurie, Martha, Deborah, and so many others on the call, I'm going to end this with something from my book, The $1 Million Producer, to tell you about my journey, my triumph from a 1-bedroom house shared with 6 or 7 other people, and how God has made a way, and how my vehicle, our vehicle, and your vehicle is real estate is one of the best choices you can make. So when you find yourself in a mess, make sure you have a message. And in my book on page 161, it says, when the glory comes, because glory is going to come after this recession that we're in right now. Finding your real estate niche. I mentioned that working with investors became a third of my business after the recession. See, I've been here before. Investors are people who buy real estate to flip for a profit, or they rent property to others for a profit. When I started working with investors, I would help them to find properties through multiple listing service. Over time, I learned that there were other ways to find investment property. The chief way that most investors purchase properties was through the county's court system called the Masters of Equity sale. The Masters of Equity is how the county disposes of bank foreclosed properties, and this is coming. I began to attend the Masters of Equity, watching how it worked. I was introduced to it by a friend, and we strategized on how to get into the game of buying foreclosed properties. Bidding at the Masters of Equity sale was fast and furious, and you better know what you're doing when you go there and raise your hand. Okay, and it said, in my opinion, this is one of the most riskiest ways to buy real estate, but it's also one of the most profitable. And I was introduced to it by a friend. She knew how to do the research, and we partnered and started going to the sales. And here's how it goes. A local newspaper will list all the foreclosed properties that are going to be auctioned off on the first Monday of the month at noon, always at noon. So you always have to position yourself like the eagle and perch on a limb or whatever, so you can see what's going on so that you can be ready to bid. The process is so risky, but because the homes are still occupied, some of the homes you can't even go in before you buy. Some of the homes are boarded up. Others are plagued with multiple mortgages, unpaid taxes, and liens. So that's why I say it's risky. You need somebody with experience. When experience counts, if you want to count your money, experience counts. And I think that you don't invest where you can't see that someone is experienced and has already succeeded at what they're trying to teach you. You need to go for the pro, go for somebody that you can trust when you're investing, but most of all, get knowledge like you guys are getting on this call tonight. So on the day of the sale, you arrive, you sit and you wait until the property that you're interested in is called, and then you're ready to bid. The bidding war begins. There's an attorney there, and he is there or she is there for the lien holder's interest, and they bid. The banks don't show up. They send an attorney to bid. You have to be awake, alert, speak fast, listen closely, or you'll be lost in the dust, and you'll miss the opportunity to buy that property that can net you 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, even $90,000 in profit after you make repairs. I've seen it happen. I've been a part of making it happen for my clients. So the room is pretty much filled with 50 to 75 people in attendance. Some of these people are homeowners who unfortunately lost their homes, and they're there to plead and to cry about it. So it's a serious time. Foreclosures, like I said, they are coming. So that's why I'm sharing this part with you out of the book. There are 50 to 75 people there, but there are really only about 10 to 12 players, people who have the cash and can buy these properties at a very big discount. So purchasing properties this way became a game changer for me. I had to realize that after the recession of 2008, after so many people had lost their homes, I had to find a new niche. So then I upped my game, up leveled, and I started having Making House Money Boot Camp. And so it goes on and on and on. And as Pamela Mann says, this place, I thought to my God, and I thanked him, how did I end up in this place? How did I end up helping people, helping myself? And I just loved what I was doing. I loved it. I still love it. And I want you to love it too, because you can no longer depend on a single job. You have to find a way to make your money work for you. I am sharing this because we had a recession. We had some good years, about 7 or 8, 9 good years. Things are down right now, but they're only down if you bury your head in the sand. Now is the time to learn everything you can so that you can have multiple streams of income. And I want to tell you, it doesn't get much better than real estate, where somebody pays you rent, and I know we got some investors on this line, pays you rent, Sandra and Genevieve for sure. They pay your rent, but in that, they pay your mortgage. And if you don't have a mortgage, then if they're paying you $700 and you got a $500 mortgage, they're giving you $200 every month. Who do you know gives you $200 every month? Okay. And they are funding your retirement. They are funding your kids' college. They are funding your vacation. They're funding your golden years, years that now not so many people are looking at them as golden years. They're looking at them as, I wish I woulda, I coulda saved more money after working 40 years and I'm nearly broke, or I have to watch how I spend my pennies. So when you own real estate, majority of the time, equity is going to build up unless you pull equity out. And I tell people, when you pull equity out, you can only spend money one time. So make sure you spend it wisely. Real estate is one of those things where you leverage your time, because we own real estate, but I still sell real estate. I still hold boot camps. I still write a book. I still help other people to buy real estate, to sell real estate. Why? Because real estate works. Real estate makes the world go round. And so get you a piece of real estate, one piece to live in, the other piece to rent out, and then have multiple streams of income. Because I'll tell you, if you've got 20 pieces of property, 30 pieces of property, some people have 100 pieces. They have large apartment buildings, and that money is coming in like clockwork. Even if one person doesn't pay, you still are going to have other people who are paying, and people are going to always need a place to live. So when you want to get into a business, think about a business that is never going to go out of style, that's always going to be in style. And you can look around at this pandemic, at the coronavirus, and you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot. They're telling you when you can sit down in a restaurant, how long you can stay in a store or a nail shop, or how many people can go in. when to go to church. And so look around at, if you're a restaurant owner, you're hurting right now. If you are a clothing store, you're still hurting right now. Your business is not quite what it used to be. If your business is not one where you could have a takeout service, you're hurting. I have a client that is a funeral director. And I said to him, I said, well, business is thriving for you right now, unfortunately. And he said, no, it's really not. He said, because we're having great graveside services. People are not renting extra cars. They're not doing things elaborately. They're cutting back, So I never thought about it that way. So when you're in business, or when you think about opening a business, always think about something that's going to thrive in a down and an up market. Any questions? Laurie says, awesome. Deborah, awesome. Yes, we want to be the one to collect money. And so let's see, has anybody else found any other ways? Martha Suber says, I love your story. Genevieve says, real estate works. So anybody else that's on the line or on the video, I keep saying on the line, if you have any questions after this, please direct them to me. And I'm going to have some great news coming out next month. After being in business it's over 34 years, going into my 35th year, I'm shifting to do some things that are on the cutting edge. And as you all know, Genevieve, because you taught me how to use Facebook, and now I probably use it more than you, but it's the way of the world. And so some of the things that I have been doing face to face, I'm now going to be doing virtually, training, teaching, holding workshops, learning this Zoom, and opening my real estate academy. So stay tuned for this. Is going to be cutting edge, and it's going to allow more people to succeed in different areas other than real estate, because I'm known for real estate, but I am not just real estate. So thank you so much for jumping on tonight, and I'll see you on Sunday at Sunday's Best. And call somebody and tell them that you got one lesson tonight out of the book, The $1 Million Producer, From the Cotton Field to the Capital. What a journey. What a blessing. Full of gratitude. He did it. He did it for me, and he'll do it for you. How I got over. Have a good night. In fact, have a $1 million life.